Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Alain. As you can see, we have a special guest today. Michael Munyun's joining me. We're going to do some talking about self-defense and wasp spray, a topic that you might not know a lot about, but you will by the end of today. You know, I'm drinking out of the Korean Martial Art Festival mug, and the reason is both Michael and I are on there, and he has the same mug there because we're both on that mug. We both teach at the Korean Martial Art Festival, as well as teaching all over the place, a couple different variety of topics. Michael has been on the show with me before, but for those of you that don't remember or not as familiar, Michael, would you just give them a quick intro and a little bit about your background and what you bring to the table of self-defense?
Absolutely. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Michael Munyun. I'm the owner of Munyun Tactical, and I retired from the United States Air Force as a Security Forces Master Sergeant, and I was the training superintendent for Security Forces, where we covered a plethora of different materials to include use of force and chemical irritants, which we're going to be talking about today. I'm also a lifelong martial artist. I'm in 9 martial art Hall of Fames. I travel the world teaching self-defense and defensive tactics to multiple agencies. So today, I think it's going to be a really good discussion about chemical irritants, you know, the myths and the facts and things that we need to know. There's a lot of information floating on the internet, and, we got some internet lawyers and some wannabe, experts who really aren't true experts. They're self-proclaimed experts. And, today with the topic of, using chemical irritants for self-defense, there's some things that some of our viewers have to realize. And the top 3 different types of chemical irritants, I would say, would be like the OC, the Oriole Resolum Capsicum Pepper Spray. There's the bear spray, and then there's the mythical, wasp spray, and there's pros and cons to all of these things. But when it comes to this discussion, I think our viewers need to realize that out of all the options that they can use for a less than lethal self-defense tool, is they have to go with the OC pepper spray that they can use on humans. A lot of people think.
I'm going to interrupt you there, Michael, because you forgot we got Reflex Protect, which is a CS based.
That's correct.
And that is also illegal and very effective, non-cross contaminating. So you got to put the Reflex Protect CS with the OC, because I think it's a little better. But when you're looking at them, both of those are your legal options to use.
Absolutely, 100%. And first, let's talk about a little bit about regular pepper spray that most of us carry for personal protection. There's a lot of times I'll walk around, and my wife and I, when we were visiting our kids that were in college, I would see these college kids carrying pepper spray on their keychain, and me being who I am, introduce myself and ask them, hey, what type of pepper spray do you have? Is it cone, or is it stream? Is it alcohol based or water based or whatever? And they go, I don't know. I've never tested it out before, and I'm like, you've never flipped the switch and then tried to spray it to see, if you can hit what you're aiming for and things of that nature? Nope. So I'd give them some suggestions and stuff, and what I like about store purchased pepper spray is a lot of people don't know about the Scoville heat factor. There's over 2 million Scoville heat units in store-bought and pepper spray, and that's a lot of heat, and one of the benefits of OC or CS is the fact that there's an acronym called REMS, I want to say, and REMS is respiratory system is affected, your eyes are irritated, motor skills are affected, and then the S is the skin irritation. When you look at things like wasp spray, it does not have all of those functions. At best, you might get a little respiratory issue, and then you get some eye irritation, but not to the level of store-purchased OC or CS.
And that's because in the 1980s, they changed and they watered down most wasp sprays and pesticides. Now, if you were way back in the 40s or 50s with a wasp spray, a little bit different story. But from the 80s forward, wasp sprays were really watered down and made more safe, so they wouldn't harm people. And they would still harm wasps and insects, but not people.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to that here in just a few moments. A lot of people, I hear people suggest using bear spray, because when people think of bear spray, they think bear spray can stop a big, strong, huge bear and everything. But what people don't realize is in store purchased, OC that we use for personal protection, it has 10% Oriole Resolum Capsicum, 10%. Bear spray only has 2% which means it's a lot less. And people don't understand that just because you use it on a bear, it doesn't make it effective on human beings, because animals have a heightened sense of smell. Their smell sensitivity is a lot more than ours. So that's why there's only 2%. So the myth of using, bear spray, and let's be honest, both wasp spray and pepper spray come in containers this big. You're not going to walk around with something this big. It's not portable. It's not convenient. You stand out like a sore thumb. So
and the advantage is it goes farther with a huge cloud, which is good for a bear. You want that, but you don't want it in your house. You're going to keep that in your bedroom for personal defense and fill your house.
Yes.
Or like the kid in Utah right before the pandemic, he sprayed off the pepper spray. I don't know if it's pepper spray or bear spray, but it got in the HVAC and they had to evacuate the entire school.
Yes.
I mean, and if you did bear spray inside, you'd be cleaning forever.
Yes. It's funny too. It's funny you mentioned the distance. When you use the store purchase pepper spray, you get about 6 to 12 feet of reach with that, with the wasp spray and the bear spray. I think the reason why these so-called experts want to recommend it is because it has that reach out and touch somebody of 20 to 30 feet and everything. But,
right.
You got to hit the person accurately in the face for it to be effective, and let's talk back about that wasp spray. A lot of people don't realize this, but, wasp spray is poison. All right. It's a chemical poison. It's a synthetic poison that's man-made, and one of the things people have to realize about, if you use wasp spray for personal protection, it is not a safe legal option and is considered excessive force and may even negate any claims of self-defense. So wasp spray legally, as well as the chemicals not having the desired effects that you want, one of that REMS acronym that I mentioned before, wasp spray does not give you that effect. There's videos that I've watched on YouTube of a gentleman that was daring enough to be sprayed with OC, bear spray, and wasp spray. And he had to do like this. He had to go to different stations and do certain functions. And the very first thing he got sprayed with was the wasp spray. And of course, you see this guy go, it hurts a little bit. He wipes his face. And he goes, okay, now I can see a little bit. He starts blinking a few times and he's able to do all the different stations with no problem. He got sprayed with OC. He took 2 steps, dropped to his knees, and said words I can't say in church because of how effective it was and everything. So when people go to look at a use of force tool or a force multiplier, and people go, just use bear spray or just use, wasp spray, I just think to myself, regular, legally safe chemicals such as OC or CS can be purchased for $13. And there is no worries about how effective it's going to be and the legalities of it.
Exactly. We have videos on YouTube of people being sprayed with Reflex Protect and they drop. And I know the video you're talking about where the guy did the task, catches the ball and different stuff after being sprayed with wasp spray. There's other videos you can find too of guys being sprayed. There's one guy sprayed with a couple different kinds, a foamy one and a different one of wasp spray. And he's just like, no, I could still get you. So just a terrible thing. And I want to address, as the former prosecutor years ago in me, I get people saying, well, I just grabbed wasp spray and used it. That is self-defense, weapon of opportunity. And I said, no, because when I look at your social media posts and you're out there promoting it for self-defense and telling people you have it for self-defense and telling other people to get it for self-defense, that weapon of opportunity is out the window because it's premeditated. Correct. And any good prosecutor is going to look at that, and that's how they're going to go after you if they decide to prosecute you for that, which they can. And then if by chance that hurts the person's eyes, now all of a sudden the bad guy is the victim because he's got a plaintiff's attorney and they're suing you.
Absolutely.
And that happens all the time too. Criminals and criminal families will sue the person. And if they have that you used an illegal substance, that just helps their suit to get lots of money.
And it goes to make you wonder, all those so-called, security or use of force experts, that are telling people to use the wasp spray. In a way, they could be legally liable for their statements and everything, especially if they're posting it and giving safety recommendations of things of that nature. That's why I stay away from talking about using stuff like bear spray and wasp spray, because I don't want to be on the hook for somebody's safety, because I gave them bad advice, So I'm with you with the legality aspect of it and everything.
And I don't know a lot of cases. I mean, you and I were talking before of a case in Michigan where the person used some kind of bug spray, or I don't know if it was wasp spray, it was another insecticide, sprayed the person that was trying to get in the house. The guy then broke into the house and beat the heck out of the guy with the spray. When the police got there, they both claimed self-defense. The bad guy, who broke in the house, said it was self-defense because he got sprayed. The other guy said, well, it was self-defense. I sprayed him because he was breaking in the house. The guy that broke into the house was prosecuted. The guy that was spraying was not prosecuted. However, the guy that sprayed got the heck beat out of him. It didn't stop the guy. The guy still, with a face full of insecticide, beat the heck out of him.
Yep.
So it just, again, if he would have had Reflex Protect or a good pepper spray, he could have stopped that guy and he wouldn't have got beat up.
We talked about products, right? We talk about OC, Reflex Protect. We talked about the wasp spray and the bear spray. So we talked about those self-defense tools, but there's a second part that we need to address, and that is formal training with that. When I was the security forces training superintendent and we had to do pepper spray training, we used MK3 at the time. And boy, that was not fun. Training with pepper spray is so important as well, because people don't realize that there's strengths and weaknesses to pepper spray, because we have the water-based and alcohol-based. Well, what does water do at 32 degrees, Alan?
Yeah, it freezes.
Right, it freezes, right? So a lot of people, like I'm from Michigan originally, and people will leave their pepper spray in their car. When it comes to a self-defense situation, they're going to press the button and, nothing or a drop will come down, and a lot of people, don't train on, like we have those training dummies called bobs. You don't need a bob. You can use like a tree or something to go ahead and practice, some types of training that we need to include when it comes to pepper spray or chemical irritants. Is just like a gun, drawing it from the holster, getting in a good stance, being conscious of the weather environments, so we don't, have it sprayed back in our faces. We also have to learn to, when we engage and spray the pepper spray, get off the X, because, it takes conservatively about 3 seconds before it kicks in. And that's a lot of time for the bad guy to grab you, or if they have a weapon, try to come after you and things of that nature. And if you find yourself wrestling around in a self-defense scenario, once you employed chemical irritants, you might get secondary contact of that chemical irritant on you. And the worst thing you want to do is jump in your car and start driving on public roads and highways and having your eye irritation and all that other stuff and breathing problems and so on and so forth. So training has to be a part of pepper spray ownership, just like a firearm. We got to have training with the firearm. We got to have training with pepper spray. And I know Reflex Protect offers, training so that people know what it is, how it works, and so on and so forth.
And, one of the keys, and with Reflex Protect, it works a little faster than pepper spray, so you don't have quite the gap, and there's less chance of getting cross-contaminated. However, with pepper spray, if you have the fogger, you can do the S and get the guy. With Reflex Protect or a stream pepper spray, it goes down that stream. You have to be more accurate. And I have trained thousands and thousands of people, because, I'll go and train an organization, a hospital, and I might have 100 people out there on the firing line, taking turns with the inerts. And I would say 99.5% of them spray high on their initial spray, and they have to bring it down. And if you haven't experienced that in training and realize that what that does, you're spraying over his head. And if you spray over the head, you're not going to do anything. And that is the only thing about Reflex Protect that I caution people for, versus a cloud pepper spray. A cloud pepper spray, you don't have to have any accuracy. You just fill in the area with it. With Reflex Protect or a stream pepper spray, you need to be a little accurate and hit it in the eyes. And almost everybody sprays high first and has to lower the stream into the face.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, I got a quick story to share, if you don't mind me sharing a story. So I was in the Air Force stationed stateside, and I got dispatched to a domestic violence situation. So I go to respond. I make contact with the dependent wife. We start talking, get her side of the story. And I said, "Where's your husband?" "Well, he went up into the attic. He was in base housing." So I said, "He's in the attic, right?" She goes, "Correct." I said, "All right." So I go to the attic, and the attic was, the door was up, and I'm yelling for the individual to please come down. I want to talk to him, get his side of the story. He's saying some words again I don't say in front of grandma to me and everything. And I told him if he doesn't come down, I'll bring canine. And he's still yelling at me. He's not coming down. I asked the wife, "Does he own any firearms?" She goes, "He does have weapons in the house." So I don't know if up in the attic he has a firearm. So after I do, try to talk to the guy, threaten with canine and everything, I pull down the attic door, pull down the steps. I grab my pepper spray. I shake it up. I give him one more warning to come down. I told him I was going to use OC. So OC, OC, OC. I sprayed the living heck out of that attic. I lift up the door. I think it was about 45 seconds later, he's coughing involuntarily coming down from that attic. So could I do that with wasp spray? No. Could I do that with bear spray? No. And if you think about from a self-defense scenario too, trouble comes in pairs. So what I'm saying is, if there's someone that's trying to mug you, typically they have an overwatch, somebody, making sure that, hey, that's a good victim, or they have a driver or things of that nature, and so when trouble comes in pairs, I think using OC and CS, you're going to get, more effectiveness, especially with the fogger, so during, all the riots you see on the news and protests and things get crazy, you don't see law enforcement and military people responding to incidents with wasp spray or bear spray because they know it doesn't do the job. So right there should tell you, if the professionals are not using wasp spray and bear spray, why should you?
Exactly. Especially when it's just so easy to buy Reflex Protect or a pepper spray, legal, effective tools to help defend yourself. Want to say a couple things. Dixon said hello. Hi, Grandmaster Munyun. And then Dixon also said, "Bob, body opponent bag," because you glossed over that rather quickly. Yeah, we're not spraying our buddy Bob. Bob is meant to be sprayed because it's a special mannequin, looks like a human that you can punch and kick and spray and all sorts of good stuff.
That's not true. I find some random guy named Bob and I spray him. That's just how I work. No, I'm kidding. So
in the law enforcement community with Reflex Protect, we spray a lot of law enforcement officers because they're sprayed with pepper spray. They're sprayed with Reflex Protect. They got to take a hit before they'll believe us and that it works. And so a lot of videos online of cops being sprayed by Reflex Protect. And you find a lot of them being sprayed by pepper spray too to show its effectiveness. Mm-hmm. And if you look, you'll find a few of those videos of wasp spray, not effective.
Not effective. Nope. It's not really even a choice. Who decided to say wasp spray? Why not say, Windex? To me, it's like, it doesn't do the job that people claim that it does, and any chemical in the eyes is going to cause irritation, but the reach, I can see the reach factor, but again, you're reaching for the reach because it's not going to do what OC and CS will do. We want that REMS acronym to affect that person because it has a physiological effect on that person. Physically, they're in pain. Mentally, they were looking for a victim, not a victor. You know what I'm saying? And once you fight back and you use the proper legal use of force tools, and that's another thing, you have to know the laws and legalities of use of force tools and when to use pepper spray, when not to use pepper spray. And again, as I mentioned before, using wasp spray because it's considered poison and toxic to humans and animals, it is considered excessive force. And again, you can lose your right to claim self-defense legally by using it. So don't make it in your option. Don't make it part of your arsenal. Put it in the garage where it belongs or the cabinet where it belongs, and put the keychain, on the pepper spray on your keychain or in your pocket or in your purse or in your vehicle, and just have it accessible. Because again, that bear spray and wasp spray, just the big, huge cans, it's just so ridiculous, to talk about using, the pepper spray and bear spray when it looks like a mini fire extinguisher walking around on you,
Exactly. And, and you can't claim, well, I didn't know, because wasp spray says right on the canisters not to be used for human. Yeah, I mean, so it tells you right there that it is illegal. And as I said earlier, you can't say, well, it was a weapon of opportunity when you are promoting using it for self-defense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you're ignoring the warning that's on the can right in front of your face. So it just blows those legal arguments out. But again, I want something that works. I know for a fact Reflex Protect immediately causes involuntary eye closure and intense burning when it hit the eyes. I know pepper spray, a couple seconds later, it's really burning. And, whether it's 2 million Scovilles or you can get 5 million Scovilles.
Correct. 2 to 5.
For CS, they don't measure it with the hotness. You measure it with the percentage. And a 2% CS mixture, it immediately eye closures, intense pain. It hits hard. And you're going to stop somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you practice a little, you know how to use it, you're good. There are people that even with their wasp spray probably haven't sprayed it, and they're going to fumble and screw up trying to use it too. If you haven't,
because it goes back to training. You got to have those repetitions in. Another thing too. It's easier for the bad guy to escape and evade law enforcement with bear spray and wasp spray. You spray them with CS or OC, they're not going to be running very far, or if at all, making it easier for law enforcement to locate and apprehend or arrest that individual too. So I mean, when you look at the cradle to grave of the bad guy trying to commit a crime, you defend yourself. Now the suspect, is no longer able to run away and escape and so on, unless they got buddies that pull him into the car and drive off. If you have a lone, criminal trying to do something bad to you, their means of escape is going to be gone because they can't see where they're going.
And if they do get away, they've been tagged. All of Reflex Protect has the UV dye in it, which so law enforcement can recognize them later. Many pepper sprays have it as well.
Yes.
So you also have that marking or identification when you use those products. The UV dye helps deconning too, which is important for law enforcement because they can use a light. They can see where the guy's affected. They can effectively, after he's been handcuffed and stuff, they can decon him, pass him off to the other channels.
Absolutely.
And so there's just so many reasons that the tool that is meant for the job is much better than something not meant for the job that people are advocating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those people who are given those suggestions, I just want to say from a professional, security professional standpoint, a use of force guy, don't continue spreading that myth. Don't continue giving misinformation because you're going to get somebody hurt or in legal trouble. And we don't want that. If you're trying to be good, tell them the stuff that's like Alain said, it's proven legally and it's proven as far as a product to have the effects we're looking for so we can escape and evade danger.
Exactly. And I think some of the people, many of the people that they share these posts are doing it because they're uninformed and they believe they're sharing something good to help people, not knowing that this post they're sharing about wasp spray is terrible.
Yes.
And so, I don't want to blame all these people that are sharing the information when they're trying to do something good, but they're ignorant of the facts that we have just laid out in this video and that others, if you did some research, have laid out in places too.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Is there anything else about this topic that we've missed or that you want to bring up?
No, I think we hit everything we needed to hit. So we talk about, the pros and cons, the myths, the facts, legalities, practicality. When it comes to your personal defense, you got to be responsible for carrying the right object, making sure you have proper and adequate training with it and use it reasonably and legally. So I think we covered everything.
People know you can find me at enjoylifesafely.com and reflexprotect.com. I can help you with training and different things through reflexprotect.com and through enjoylifesafely.com. Michael, where can they get a hold of you for training and more information?
Well, that's pretty simple. They can go to my website called MunyunTactical.com. And my last name is in my name block there, MUNYON Tactical.com. Or if they want to give me an email, they can email me at michael@MunyunTactical.com. I provide a plethora of services and personal protection, executive protection, chemical irritants, firearms, you name it, I do it.
Awesome. So if you guys need some training, more information, contact either of us, contact both of us. We're here to help you stay safe and give you the training that will help you and your organizations. So, Michael, you also wrote a couple books. Hold up your books if you got them handy. I don't have them. I have them, but I don't have them handy.
A shameless plug?
Plug. Those are available at Amazon, correct?
Yes, sir. We have one that's called Realtor Safety and Self-Protection. My wife's a realtor. I got to see some of the stuff she did in her business, and I'm like, nope, we got to get some safety practices going. So this is a great one. And in a couple states, when I go to teach these seminars, they count as Con Ed. And then I have another one on basically VIP security, basically learning the basics. I'm not really teaching people how to do it, but I'm giving them some inside information that they need to know in case they want to do that type of career field. And then I got one for martial artists called From Black Belt Student to Black Belt Instructor. A lot of people don't know what that means, but what it is just because you're a black belt doesn't qualify you to be an instructor. There's things you have to do to learn to become an instructor. And this book covers all the things that I've learned over my, 46 years in the martial arts.
Awesome. We'll probably have to have you back on the show to talk about those topics one of these days. Do want to read this. Dixon said, great coverage as to why to stop believing the myth about non-effective sprays. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you for being here and commenting, Dixon. Appreciate that. Michael, I really appreciate you being on the show today. Appreciate everybody that watches, comments, watches replays, listens to the podcast. All of you are greatly appreciated. We're going to sign off. You go make it a fantastic Friday. I'll be back tomorrow.